Top 30 middleweights, look out. We have South Korea's the Iron Turtle, Jun Yong Park, looking to make it 3 wins in a row when he takes on Denis Tiuliulin coming up this weekend. And for Denis Tiuliulin, if you look at it, coming into the UFC, we didn't really have the nicest things to say about him necessarily. I mean, I look at Denis Tiuliulin, it's almost like watching a kid playing Rock'em Sock'em Robots and just mashing on it. Or you've got some baseball fan from Southie at a Red Sox game like, come on, pitcher. Hey, batter, strike him the f*** out. Like, just yelling in his ear. Because for Tiuliulin, like, he'll go 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, back out, and then throw, like, one leg kick, and then wait there, and then throw a hook, and then 1-2, 1-2. Like, it really is a game plan that I see him struggling with against not even ranked fighters in the UFC. And then if you watch his fight, his last time out against Jamie Pickett, and you just look at the graphic that they put up, it's almost like Adley Rushman, like lifting weights, trying to quote, I think you should leave, because he kind of reminded me of Carl Havoc. Like, I don't even want to be around anymore. He just didn't look like he was all that interested. And in the first round, it was competitive. I mean, you can make a case for either guy that won the first round. Most thought that Tiuliulin did. In the second round, he was like an old-timey Viking. He went berserker, and he ended up getting a crazy knockout win there. Joe Rogan was all over it, and that's the other thing about Denis Tiuliulin. The craziest part is, if you consider the fighters that made their debuts in 2020 or 2022, 2021, the last 2 years, a lot of them fought at the UFC's Apex. Denis Tiuliulin has fought at Nationwide Arena in Columbus, and then his last time out was UFC 279, Diaz versus Ferguson at T-Mobile Arena. This is the first time Denis Tiuliulin's fought in the UFC without a crowd. How do you think that's going to affect his Rock'em Sock'em mindset?
I don't think it will, just because it's so embedded into who he is. And the thing about Tiuliulin is, he is a bit of an old dog, so I doubt he's going to learn a lot of new tricks every time we see him out there, as opposed to the previous fighter we talked about. Like, Tatsuro is 23. He's awesome. He's going to get better every time we see him.
No, he's only 22.
He'll be 23 by the time of the fight, sorry. Tiuliulin's 34 and he's been fighting like this for a minute now. But Tiuliulin's always going to have that fight of the night style that I think is going to, even the most casual of audiences can appreciate his fighting style. Now, is Tiuliulin going to make his way into the top 15 and then the top 10 and then a title shot? Probably not, but I think he could have some interesting matchups on the way there. And this fight against Park, when I had originally looked at it, I had kind of discredited Tiuliulin and his abilities in this fight. I thought, hey, Park's a lot more well-rounded. He'll brawl on the outside, and he does have success doing that, so I don't just think Tiuliulin's going to win every moment on the feet. But the more that I do think about it, I don't think Jun Yong Park's going to want to stand with Denis Tiuliulin at all in this matchup. Like, I do worry about Park's mindset just because he will brawl, especially early on in his fights, and then that will be used to then open up his wrestling and some of his grappling. I worry about him in those opening 3-4 minute spurts where Tiuliulin's going to be at the peak of his powers, where he should be able to defend some of those early takedown attempts, force this into more of a boxing match, and if that is the case, if they start going one strike for one strike, it's going to be a short night for the Iron Turtle. His nickname might talk about durability, but Denis Tiuliulin hits so effing hard that I just don't know if Park wants to play that game early on, even though we have seen him do that.
And we saw Denis Tiuliulin UFC debut against the Black Wolf, Aliaskar Hazgriev, a guy who is really good at wrestling, and his affiliations lie with what they lie in southern, the country that he comes from. But when you do look at that matchup, yeah, he struggled against the takedown, but he had the right idea. I mean, Hazgriev went for the takedown. Tiuliulin goes two legs. You can't grab with your legs.
Opposite leg.
Two arms to try and grab the opposite leg, and as he does it, Hazgriev gets the back, gets the rear naked choke. But the right idea was there. It's just for Tiuliulin, from what we saw on the regional scene to what we've seen against better levels competition or guys making their pro debut, he's the same guy every fight. It really is button mashing. It's your friend trying to get all the knockdowns in UFC 4. For Jun Yong Park, he can box. He is technical on the outside. He stands really tall and upright for his height, which he can be at a disadvantage in the middleweight division. He is at least so in this matchup as well. But the thing, when I went back and watched the tape on Jun Yong Park, he's definitely fought the better level competition. We can definitely agree on that. And in the UFC, his losses are to Gregory Rodriguez, who, I mean, that ages poorly just because he lost to Bruno Ferreira in the last UFC card. But Gregory's a good fighter, part and parcel. Exactly. Anthony Hernandez is a good fighter. The wins, Marc-Andre Barriault, John Phillips, Stefan Chukwe, Eric Anders, and Joseph Holmes. But you go back and you look at the parts where he struggles, it's in the fact that he can strike and then stand there with his hands way out, leaves his head on the center line, doesn't move his body or his head. It just stays right there, and he's there to be countered and teed off on. And that's what I worry about. When he's won in the UFC, with one exception, he's out-wrestled his opponent. When he's lost, he's been out-wrestled. His fight against Hernandez, he got taken down 6 times. His fight against Gregory Rodriguez, twice. The takedowns weren't the story of the loss. He got knocked out. And in the wins, he takes down Barrio, he takes down Phillips, he takes down Chukwe, and he takes down Joseph Holmes twice. His lone his lone win that's an outlier, the fight against Eric Anders. Anders took him down a couple of times in that one. But if you look at it, even in the fight against Joseph Holmes from distance, round 1, Holmes won round 1, and he was hitting him with those long jabs where he didn't throw a ton of volume, but he was still able to hit through that guard easily.
He was, and that's why I do worry about Park on the outside. I think if Tiuliulin went to the body a little bit more with his boxing, he would have a lot of success in this matchup, just because of Park's defense. He does stand very square, and I understand that opens up some of his own, not only boxing techniques, but wrestling as well. It helps him kind of dart forward into some of his takedowns, but it does make him available to be hit. But again, I keep on going back to the fact that Park can still easily out-wrestle Tiuliulin. Like, both of those windows are wide open. If Tiuliulin wins by first round knockout, I don't think many people would be very surprised. But if Park can withstand that early storm and at least get it into the clinch early to wear on Tiuliulin, because that's going to be really important. If he just lets Tiuliulin tee off on him at range, Denis won't get that tired. Like, of course he's going to get tired as the fight goes on, but you really want to wear on him with the clinch and the wrestling to help speed up that process, because I do think Park has the better cardio in the matchup, and if he can at least survive past the kind of first round and a half, I'd say, I really do think he could come on strong in the second half of the second round and the third round with his grappling advantage, because if Tiuliulin gets flat on his back, he's not great at getting back up. Like, he's not going to start working jiu-jitsu off his back like he's Paul Craig. He's not someone who's going to, I don't know, hit crazy butterfly sweeps like he's Brandon Moreno off his back. Tiuliulin is kind of that shutdown grappler. Hope the ref gets him up. Maybe, if anything, he'll make a bad positional move. So I think Tiuliulin can have success in the areas we all know he can have success in, but I still worry about him with that wrestling and defensive grappling.
Well, I mean, Jun Yong Park about a 2-1 favorite in the matchup. We have a look at the Topology votes, Matt. Surprise to us, they are to you. I'm going to set the over-under and say 70% over-under for Jun Yong Park.
I think they'll be over.
I think they're going to be over. They are over. 965 total votes. 86% Park. 69% by decision for the 14% that have Tiuliulin. 61% by knockout. I didn't mention this. Out of the boxing for both of these guys, Jun Yong Park likes to blend his power in with a lot of his shots, and he will throw in combination a little bit more successfully than a guy like Tiuliulin. But for Tiuliulin, the thing that I like is when distance gets closed and if a fighter wants to try and clinch up against him, he's got good forearm strikes and elbows when you're trying to advance. So again, for Park, he could get caught where he's backing up quite a bit, trying to throw volume, and Tiuliulin's going out there and just landing power shots. And all he does is, it's like a right cross and a left hook, and then he just continues to mash the same combination over and over and over again. I ever so slightly like the experience out of Park and the perceived wrestling advantage. I mean, if you can out-wrestle a guy like Barrio, if you can out-wrestle some of those bigger guys in this division, I think he can have some success with that in this matchup. But Tiuliulin with the power, and Jun Yong Park, we saw him susceptible to getting finished against a guy like Gregory Rodriguez, known for his power. I wouldn't make fun of someone necessarily if you're going to go with the underdog in Tiuliulin in this matchup, even though coming into the UFC, I didn't think very highly of him.
I could easily see Tiuliulin winning by finish, but I agree with you. I just think Park has more avenues to win. I like the wrestling. I think he's more likely to win by decision, and he could still win by finish, too. He's got good ground and pound. He's got good submissions. His own boxing is pretty strong if Tiuliulin does tire as the fight progresses, so I agree. I've also got Park.
Big-time matchup in this middleweight division. Both of us going with the Iron Turtle, Jun Yong Park, to get the win. We have the road to UFC finals. The tournament championships are on this prelims. You're not going to want to miss them. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.